Hello and a very warm welcome to Business Today Television. And with me today, one of the best guests to have on India's startup ecosystem, Manoj Kohli, the country head of Softbank India and the chairman of the Future Business Group at CII, and someone who's actually laid the pipes for the digital revolution that we have seen. He's the one who set up mobile networks all across all Indian states as the in his leadership position as the CEO of Bharti Airtel, and not just India. I don't know how many of you know that he also went and did that all over Africa. Manoj, as always, a very warm welcome and wonderful to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Siddharth. I've missed meeting you for a long time.
Okay, so the reason we are talking today, and since it's Digital India, and we are discussing what Manoj has been leading in terms of furthering India's startup revolution, it's only in the fitness of things that both of us are doing this digitally instead of old technology. So, Manoj, let's start with this summit that you put in place for our startups, the next 1,000. And what came of this? Did we just evaluate and talk shop, or did we get some concrete stuff going for the next wave of innovation?
No, thank you, Siddharth. I think this is really a very big turning point in Indian economy. And we thought that when we have 95 unicorns in the country, it is better that we systematically plan for 1,000 by 2030. Because frankly, in this Amrit Kal event situation, we should plan much more long term. And this is a huge shift in industrial economy of India. And therefore, for the first time in the world, you'll be surprised, a global unicorn summit was organized yesterday and today. It finished about half an hour back. So you are the first person I'm talking to. Objective was to nurture 1,000 unicorns. And let me define unicorns. Unicorns are those startups which have a value of 1 billion plus. And today we are 95. We are planning to go up to 1,000 plus by 2030. We also are number 3 in the world in startups after US and China. And our objective is to be number 1 in the world. Now, this summit was very successful because we had 21 sessions, 10 countries participated, 5 states of India participated. There were 22 unicorn founders who participated and 65 star speakers. Now, we did this because we feel that the positive impact of unicorns is fantastic. One, that majority of the investment now, if you notice in the last 2 years, 60 to 70% of investment in India is going into unicorns and startups. Which means that the GDP positive impact, if Indian GDP has to go up from 3 trillion to 5 trillion, then startup contribution will be huge to that GDP growth, incremental GDP growth. Secondly, the talent of India, especially from small towns and villages, is really becoming entrepreneurs. For example, we talked to Vikram Chopra, who came in one of the sessions. He's the Cars 24. He's from Raebareli. We talked to Dipinder of Zomato. He comes from Muktsar in Punjab. So many founders are from small towns, very well educated, very technology savvy, and very hungry to win. Win for themselves, win for their company, and of course, win for the country. The third impact we see is the technology impact. Today, we see massification of digital technology. If you see, for the first time, the rural consumer behavior has changed in the last 2 years, where rural consumer actually is doing financial transactions, payment systems, money transfer on mobile now, digitally, which never happened in the history because there was no trust. Today, there's a trust. There's a faith in digital technology, which is fantastic. And I think these entrepreneurs and unicorns are utilizing that situation to go deep into India's villages. The fourth aspect, Siddharth, is very important, that if you remember in Airtel, we had made a unique business model in the world. And that is why we could reduce the tariff of the telecom mobile internet to lowest in the world. Same thing is happening here. These digital unicorns are coming up with very unique business models which are most affordable in the world, which actually makes them viable for a global business or global operations. And last but not the least, they're also building admired brands. If you see IPL, if you see cricket, if you see Olympics, 60 to 70% of ads are startup ads, startup brand ads, which is fantastic. That means that these startups and unicorns will build brands which are admired not only in India, but going global. And that is the
Right.
dream. That is a dream of every Indian, that we should see our brand across many, many countries of the world. So these were the objectives behind this summit.
Manoj, let's also talk about uh, the next wave of innovation. What's your own sense, since you have interacted with so many startups and you gave us some examples about how it's actually Bharat which is starting up in many ways. Uh, so far, the wave of innovation has been led by certain sectors, and I repeat, it's all because of the telecom backbone that you have in your previous outing done, and so many others, and that revolution also continues parallelly, silently, even if that is no longer considered as hot as startups. And the company that you worked for was also a startup at one point of time. So where's the next wave of innovation coming from? Which sectors, and what is going to drive that?
Let me tell you, the next wave of next 5 years, let's say by 25, 26, will be in areas of health tech. Health tech is one thing which India needs in a big, big way. And health tech includes clinics, online medicines, pharmacies, where Indian consumer has difficulties. So health tech will be one of the top five. Another one will be, which has started already, but still long way to go, is ed tech. The massification of education, especially for small towns, villages, especially isolated villages. I remember in Airtel, I used to personally go to thousands and thousands of villages where there was no road, there was no water or power, but mobile was there. But now education has to reach. And that will reach only through digital technology. It can't reach physically because you can't get the best teachers in the country to go to a village and teach. It can only happen through, and by the way, those children deserve to have best teachers. Why
Absolutely.
not? Because they're very bright people. They're very bright kids. They're hungry to succeed.
Right.
The third aspect which I see is the area of robots and drones,
Hmm.
robotics and drones. Very big area. Because frankly, India has to be automated. India has to be digitized more and more to become a modern economy. And this will help. And there are already startups doing this. The next area is agri-tech. Agri-tech, because of India is a very large producer and we export so much, but our productivity is still low. And for productivity to go up, we have to mechanize and digitize our agri. And that is how these companies are helping, which earlier companies could not. And last but not the least, I feel defense industry will have a major catalyst through digitization, which includes space.
Okay.
So space and defense. So I'm saying these are the 5 areas which maybe in the last 5-10 years were not a big focus, but in the next 5 years will be a big focus.
Manoj, you have always been a people person, and I remember your days where not only did you set up the physical infrastructure, but also nurtured talent, which has then gone not just in that company, but all across really. From a people point of view, startups represent an absolutely exciting possibility. Earlier, access to capital was difficult. Now, access to capital is far higher. And as you answer that question about the people who are driving startups, I also want to ask you one point that perhaps has been thrown at you in the past. Is there a certain bias only towards the products, byproducts of elite institutions? Are investors giving enough opportunity to those who may not have been lucky enough or hardworking enough to get into elite institutions?
Okay, so let me tell you, this is a people movement. The young talent, and let me define it, millennial talent, which is average age of 27, educated, very hungry, very tech savvy, because tech savvy is very important. And let me tell you, I'm delighted when I go to small towns, I meet young boys and girls, 10 years, 15 years, 12 years, who want to get into AI, machine learning, become coders, get into software development, programming, etc., which is fantastic. This is where India's strength is. And I feel that this millennial generation is very purpose driven, which means that they don't want to work for a company which is only going for profits. They want to check the purpose. Is the purpose good for society? So they're very sensitive people. Now, this generation also is very freedom conscious, in the sense that they don't want to be bound by one office, the 9 to 5, 9 to all. They are on their own. They will contribute, they will actually do much better with that freedom. They don't want to be bound by the strict restrictions, but they finally do better than others. Mm-hmm. And finally, most importantly, I feel that these guys are very conscious of the respect. They want to work for corporations which respect people, which respect their good values, which respect their future learning, future aspirations. But most importantly, Siddharth, now the biggest trend is that young millennial talent doesn't want to become employees. They want to become entrepreneurs. Even if they are small or big, it doesn't matter. Or they want to work for entrepreneurial startups, companies very close to entrepreneurs. So I think this is a huge shift. And I think the shift is from few industries or few industrial houses to thousands and thousands of startups and unicorns, which are started by the first generation young. For example, Ritesh, I'll give you one example. He comes from a small village in Orissa. And I had met him because he started working for Airtel in Orissa, because Airtel was distributing our SIM cards, and he was one of the, when he was half his age, he's 27, 28 now. When he's half his age, he started in a village. So I'm saying this is the talent which is coming up, which frankly 10 years back was not coming. And now this talent has got a great encouragement because of this revolution. And you will see in the next 5 to 10 years, this talent will be at the forefront of industrial revolution. My only weakness which I see is that diversity is still low, which means that women entrepreneurs like Falguni of Nykaa are still a small percentage. And we have to encourage government, investors, all of us have to jointly encourage more and more women entrepreneurs to take their business big, which I think will happen in the next 5 years also. But today, that percentage is low.
Manoj, you answered the people part and gave us good examples. But the other part of my question, fundraising and this alleged bias towards a certain brand?
No, as on date, there's no such bias. Maybe it was there 10 years back or whatever, but there's no bias today. I think the bias is for having the right product or service for the consumer, which the consumer will love, which the consumer will find it easy and convenient to use. The bias is towards having a business model which is profitable. Bias is towards scalability of the business in India domestically and globally. And of course, the bias is on the ethics of the founder. So these are the positive biases, I'll say, which investors have, but not that you come from some elite college or elite school.
Okay, fair point. And for those who are aspiring entrepreneurs, this will be very good to hear from you. My next question, really, and this has to do with a point that you made earlier. When you look at the Indian startup ecosystem, we have seen it achieve a certain degree of maturity. That is also represented by investor exits that have happened. Yet, there have been people who say that it's only in one direction, and large amounts of capital which are trying to find the next wave. And in all of that, some fundamentals are being ignored, some business metrics are being ignored, and this valuation frenzy may damage those who are yet to come in, and they will come with starry eyes and realize that that's not how it works, Manoj.
Okay, Siddharth, let me take you back 20, 30 years back or 50 years back. Many businesses were started by people, by industrialists. Every business did not succeed. But we may have forgotten it because at that time, large-scale closures may not have happened or large-scale funding may not have happened. Today, these things, because of media, are highlighted much more. But let me tell you the good news of today. Because last 5-10 years was a warm-up period. Now there is a maturity period starting. The focus on 2-3 things has enhanced significantly in the last 2-3 years. Number one, a profitable business model. All the companies, all the founders are now focusing on profitable business model on per unit basis, which is a great news. Great news for the company, great news for the country. Second thing which has also happened is much stronger corporate governance. You may have read 1 or 2 cases which are exceptions, but those are exceptions. The corporate governance of these startups, and especially the unicorns which have already matured to a large scale, is very, very good and improving by the day. They are using the big 4 auditors, they're auditing themselves regularly. The independent directors are strong. Many things they are doing to improve the corporate governance. And by the way, this process of improvement and maturity took years in the earlier times also. If you go back 20, 30 years, the industry took time at that time also. But today, these youngsters who are 27, 28, 30, 32 are, on one hand, scaling up their business 10x, 20x, but at the same time, improving their profitability, improving their corporate governance, improving their compliances in a strong way. So we have to actually give that credit to them also, because they're doing concurrently. So I believe that this is a very positive stage. And the boards are helping them. People like me are helping them. I'm personally coaching many founders, helping them. And not that they need a lot of help. I think they're very clear on many aspects of business growth and scalability. But on these few aspects, sometimes their focus is a bit less. But now it's growing very well.
Manoj, since we are talking about this, there is also this question about the ecosystem and the support it gets. India is the third largest, fastest growing ecosystem. You have substantial experience of working in regulated sectors, and it's my sense that many, if not most of these startups are working in unregulated sectors. Is that correct? And is there a reason for it?
No, government actually has become far more close to the startups and unicorns. It's primarily because the Honorable PM himself started the startup movement in 2016 by Startup India, and I'm sure, emphasized on entire government machinery to help and support these startups to take off, which is actually happening on the ground. Hence, rules and regulations have become easier. Hence, the speed of government decision-making approvals is faster. And therefore, I believe that regulations are limited to things like data, for example, data protection. Government is very sensitive that, and should be sensitive that, the data of Indian users should stay in India, in the data centers of India, which is right. Many countries in the world are doing it. So I think the regulations are limited to few aspects, which are sensitive aspects, strategic aspects. But it's not across the business aspect, the full business. So I think these kind of regulations are important for the country. And all the founders respect these regulations, and they give a lot of suggestions, either directly, my company gives it to the government, or through CII, etc., etc. And government, fortunately, is listening. And so there is a National Advisory Council on Startups, led by Honorable Piyush Goyal. And we meet every couple of months. We go through all the issues which may need improvements. And I think action by government is swift. And
okay, I concur with you on that. My next question really about the role of a board in startups from the point of view of corporate governance that you mentioned earlier. Does a startup need a different board from a mature company?
There is a trend that many startups have a statutory board, which is from the investors. And then there is a board of advisors, which is separate. So the statutory board has investors and maybe 2 or 3 independent directors. But board of advisors are the business people or industry people who have domain expertise in that business. Or let us say if a startup is expanding into the US or Europe, so that board of advisors will have somebody who has domain expertise in that market. He will advise. So many startup founders are finding this better, having 2 boards, one for statutory and independent directors, one for business advisors. And these founders listen to them.
To interrupt you, our norms for independent directors and the overall framework, is that helpful, or would you say that some policy tweaks need to happen to further enable this distinction that you just spoke about?
No, I think independent directors in the last 2-3 years have understood the role they have to play. And even the founders have understood the role of independent directors. So both ways there is understanding. The only thing is that some independent directors I have spoken with, they are a bit scared of the liabilities, etc. Because they are not running business. They are meeting, let's say, they're doing audit committee meetings, they're doing many reviews after maybe a quarter. So they are a bit worried on the liabilities. But they're contributing very well. All their experience is being shared in the board. And now they understand what their role is. The role is basically to get the systems, processes into a very good shape, independent shape, get a 4I principle into every system, which they're doing. Definitely they're doing. And luckily now every startup is digitized. So it's easy to do it.
Absolutely.
Earlier it was manual approach, so it's difficult to do it.
It's management and governance by via dashboard. But I take that point, and I think independent directors, not in only in startups, but even in mature companies, have a very significant role, responsibility, and their fares of liabilities are genuine. I want you to compare for our viewers where we are vis-a-vis Africa, and I ask you this from a startup point of view because Africa is also a young nation. It's aspirational. Its economy is at a different level. And I'm sure there must be a lot of young people there who want to solve the problem of their people, grow their own economies. Since you have substantial experience there, just offer us a comparison because I don't want to do a comparison with China. And to me, it seems that perhaps we can take a leaf for a comparative outlook with vis-a-vis Africa.
No, in evolution terms, India is ahead of Africa.
Sure.
Maybe 5 to 7 years ahead, at least. I think our talent is ahead of African talent. Our market is more evolved. Our digital systems are evolved. Our banks and our RBI is more evolved. So our governments are much more aware, etc., etc. So therefore, I feel that to that extent, India has done better. But what you said is right. Africa, in the long run, will be a huge market. It will be the last frontier in the world. The population will be bigger than India and China. And the median age in Africa will be about 20, less than 20, 18, 19 maybe. So therefore, Africa is a very good market for Indian startups to expand into. Because Indian startups have a business model which is very affordable, and therefore it can be implanted into Africa. And you're right, China is at a higher level of evolution from us. So that is different market. But Africa, because is trying to follow us, so therefore a lot of Indian startups are already planning to get into, and they've got into Middle East, Africa, Asia Pacific, including our own portfolio companies are getting into all these markets very successfully.
Manoj, since we are speaking about Africa and the opportunities, explain to us, drawing room conversation, dining table conversation, when you have visitors from overseas and they say, wow, it is amazing, look at India, so easy to make payments. Some people, and of course that's trended on social media, compared the handwritten COVID certificate in America versus the digital barcoded certificate in India. For the average viewer, for the layman, explain how advanced really is India when it comes to fintech and payments with a comparison.
No, I think you picked up two very good examples. One is fintech, other is COVID. These two examples prove that we are ahead of the world. And that is true because, very frankly, our weak physical infrastructure is not a good news, but actually it's a great news. Actually, just like it happened in mobile and telephony, that we had only 30 million landlines at that time, if you remember, in 95. That was bad news, but it was good news because we needed telephone, genuinely. And therefore, we took a leap from, we never had analog system. We went straight into GSM, which is a digital system. Same thing is happening here. Because we didn't have enough bank branches. We didn't have enough ATMs. This mobile actually became a mobile ATM for all of us. This is India's ATM. And therefore, on fintech, we are number one. On COVID, what you're saying is very, very right. Nobody can imagine when I tell them that actually I got my booster and within 15 minutes, I got my certificate. And it is so thorough, that certificate. It has a date, time of my first shot, my second shot, the booster, date, time, venue, the person who did that. So I think this is amazing. And I feel that India is ready for this leap. not only in these two areas of fintech and COVID, it will go into every area. It will go into health tech, it will go into agri-tech, it will go into ed tech, because we are ready. Now, we are also lucky that the government is focusing a lot on physical infrastructure now. Roads are building, fantastic quality. So actually, India is pursuing both the physical infrastructure and digital infrastructure. But the digital infrastructure is helping the country and the citizens to take a much longer leap. And that, I think, we are lucky. We are lucky that our engineers, our software experts are doing a fantastic job.
Manoj, a couple of quick questions, and one of them is to do with margins. And the reason I ask you this is that I see a lot of startups getting first-rate money. And allow me to expand on that. Money has no color. Valuations may be different in the Indian economy versus a mature economy from an investor's perspective, but that's not my question. You get top dollar in the circumstances, and startups end up investing a lot of money, bringing in the best brains, fantastic world level coding. Yet the customer that you are chasing and the unit economics there is in rupees and paisa. And I have this doubt that how do you eventually have profitability of the kind that can sustain a company and its employees over a reasonable period of time? Am I even correct in asking you this question?
No, you are correct in asking this question, and I think we have proven it in telecom. Per unit economics, and that's why we had a minute factory, and that is why our per minute cost was lowest in the world. Because our per minute cost was lowest, hence per minute tariff could be low. So same thing applies to these companies. The unit economics is critical. What you're saying is absolutely right. And luckily, founders are very sensitive to that now. And they're going through the unit economics. And that is why the Indian business model will survive across the world. Because the unit economics of India cannot be matched by any other country of the world. But this time it is backed by technology, latest technology. It is not backed by some jugaad. It is not backed by something which is backward. It is supported by something which is modern technology, first time in the world, if not first time, maybe equal time in the world. So I think founders who are focused much more on unit economics will succeed faster. Founders who maybe take extra time will take some more time to succeed. But unit economics is very important. And after that, once unit economics is in place and it is profitable, then economies of scale pick up. And that is where India's economies of scale really give huge benefit. Where a small market, small country may not get that benefit.
That's a fair answer, because over 3 decades ago, when we saw one new wave of industrial activity, a lot of people said services are the future and hardware and manufacturing got ignored. Now there is a policy push towards manufacturing as well. But it's very clear to the layperson that the whole startup ecosystem and innovation in India is being driven by software and brilliant minds, and that perhaps puts us at the very top. A final word from you here today, and this is: we always count the number of unicorns, and we track it closely at Business Today as well. I want your estimate by 2025, and I don't want 2030, 2025, how many unicorns do you think India will have?
It's very difficult. Today we have 95, which means the century is not far away.
Okay.
So 22, 23, 24, 25. So 4 years.
Yes.
Even if we do, let's say, definitely 300 to 400. Now, where exactly we'll have, I don't know. It's very difficult to predict these things. But in value terms, by the way, these 95 unicorns are more than 300 billion, maybe 320 billion value. That's the estimated value of these unicorns. So value contribution is fantastic. Numbers are not that important. Value is much more important.
Absolutely. And Value is always important, and Manoj, you have created a lot of value, and including in the telecom revolution that we are all reaping the benefits of currently, and all startups must be personally thankful for you for enabling the digital dream that drives their businesses. Always a pleasure talking to you. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and hope to see you sometime again as we discuss the next wave of innovation in India. Manoj Kohli, thank you very much.
Thank you, Siddharth.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.